Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Saturday, September 14th. Today is day 344 since October 7th. Greetings from Mercer Island, Washington. I'm on a pilgrimage to peace tour with my colleague, Destiny Magnet, with Churches for Middle East Peace. We're speaking to churches and communities all over the Seattle area this week about what makes for peace. Today, we spent the day with Covenant Living Community here on Mercer Island. We're grateful to them for hosting us and for all the others we'll be with this week. We've had quite a welcome with great hospitality. Today is September 14th. Day 344 since the attacks by Hamas on October 7th. Wanted to start by talking about what's been happening in Gaza the last 24 hours. The Guardian reported today that aid groups Churches for Middle East Peace partners with have stated that more than 1 million people in Gaza will not have enough food this month, while trucks that are loaded with fresh vegetables or meat have been spoiling while waiting to get through Israeli checkpoints. Thousands of aid packages of food, medical supplies, and even toothbrushes and shampoo remain stuck in a backlog of lorries unable to enter from Egypt. When you look at the maps and the charts and you look at the colors of, who is suffering from famine and acute hunger, the entire Gaza Strip is suffering from malnutrition and acute hunger. And so the desperation in terms of the need of food is quite severe. More evacuation orders have been issued, affecting thousands of Palestinians in 3 areas of the northern Gaza Strip, stoking fears of an imminent deadly ground invasion. Reports in the past few days have indicated it could be the intention of Israelis to actually fully resume occupation of North Gaza, and even the possibility of Israeli resettlement all the way down to the Netzarim corridor. An Israeli airstrike hit another school that became a shelter for war-displaced civilians, this time in northern Gaza City. The Civil Defense Agency reported that 5 people were killed, including 2 children and a woman. Dozens more were wounded. The IDF reported that its fighter jets attacked operatives that had a Hamas command center at that school, justifying or seeking to justify those attacks. Rescue services in Gaza reported today that 11 people were killed in an Israeli attack on a residential building in a neighborhood called Tufa, east of Gaza City. 3 others were reportedly killed by an Israeli airstrike on a tent in Khan Yunis. The IDF said that 2 rockets were fired in North Gaza at the southern Israeli city of Ashkelon today. 1 rocket was intercepted, the other landed in the sea. There were no casualties reported. After the launches, the IDF's Arabic language spokesperson called on residents in some of the northern Gaza neighborhoods to evacuate their homes, saying that those areas were now a dangerous combat zone. The health ministry in Gaza said that the death toll is at least 41,182 Palestinians killed in Gaza since October 7th, and at least 95,280 people wounded since the start of the war. If you watch these videos daily, it is striking to watch the death toll just creep up day after day. You wonder when it'll hit 40,000, then when it'll hit 40,100. It's now 41,182, and that's a minimum number of people killed in Gaza. We know there's at least 1,200 people having been killed in Israel. We need to love better, to say stop the killing. The killing must stop. In the West Bank, on Thursday of this week, humanitarian groups learned that an Israeli sniper killed Sufyan Jabr Abed Jawad, an UNRWA staff member. This was in the West Bank. This was the first UNRWA staff member to die in the West Bank in a decade. Responsible Statecraft published an article that is entitled, Is Israel Intentionally Attacking Aid Workers? The journal continued by saying that they have compiled 14 separate incidents where humanitarians were attacked despite coordinating with the Israeli Defense Forces and being clearly identified as civilians. I am not trying to state anything out of turn. These are facts. This is seeking to give witness to what's happening on the ground. Of the 378 aid workers that have been killed, Worldwide, since October 7th, more than 75% have been killed in Gaza or the West Bank, according to the Aid Worker Security Database. The number of humanitarians killed in the Palestinian territory in the last months of 2023 was more than the deadliest full year ever recorded for aid workers. This includes the Israeli airstrike Wednesday, September 11th, on the school being used as a shelter in the Nusrat in central Gaza. According to reports, 18 people were killed, including children and 6 UNRWA aid workers, the deadliest single event for that organization since the start of the war. Israeli attacks on aid organizations have become routine despite the systems in place to avoid humanitarian deaths. Through a process called deconfliction, this is an important word, deconfliction, aid groups coordinate with warring parties to avoid being attacked. Popular deconfliction mechanisms used by aid groups in Gaza include clearly marking assets, arranging their movements with the Israeli authorities, and sharing their location with the Israeli military. However, a disturbing pattern has emerged. This is a direct quote from this article. Aid groups share their coordinates with Israeli authorities, and then they are attacked by the Israeli Defense Forces at those same coordinates. At the time of the recording of this update around 5 p.m. Pacific Coast time, about an hour ago in the West Bank, Israeli forces arrested 23 Palestinians trying to return to their workplaces in Israel at a checkpoint near Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. This was Al Jazeera reporting, citing local sources. In terms of updates on Israel and Lebanon, many are saying the war on Gaza will soon be moving to the northern border of Israel. Israel's Channel 13, citing an unnamed senior official, reported that Netanyahu is planning to launch a major attack on Hezbollah in Lebanon soon. No date has been set, but it is expected to be in the near future. Israel's cabinet is expected to meet this week to discuss the situation. In the past 24 hours, at least 55 rockets were fired from Lebanon into Israel, and fires have continued to be reported in northern Israel. Tens of thousands of people are still displaced on both sides of the border. The IDF said that its fighter jets attacked rocket launch sites in South Lebanon, and also that Israeli forces struck several sites there with artillery fire. Lebanon's health ministry said Friday, that 1 person was killed and 4 others were wounded in an Israeli strike on a building in South Lebanon. Dozens demonstrated in Israel yesterday and also today. Dozens demonstrated specifically outside of a synagogue in Herzliya, where M.K. Yuli Edelstein, who's from Likud, prays to protest Friday's arrest of 3 women who laid posters of hostages that are being held in Gaza on seats in the synagogue. The 3 women were arrested on suspicion of trespassing. They were released 8 hours later after hundreds of people gathered outside the police station and protested their arrest. Israel's security cabinet is expected to approve adding the return of residents to the north to their homes to a part of their goals for the war on Sunday. In terms of hostages and ceasefire updates, protests calling for a hostage deal are set to take place throughout today. That did happen today at a rally in Tel Aviv. The family of kidnapped soldier Matan Engrist aired an audio clip for the first time, which was taken from a video that was discovered in Gaza. In the clip, Engrist can be heard directly calling on Netanyahu for help to secure his freedom. The New York Times reported that U.S. President Biden's envoy, Amos Hochstein, would travel to the Middle East on Monday, this upcoming Monday, to work to prevent an escalation into an all-out war between Israel and Hezbollah. And today, the UK and the US have issued a joint statement after our Secretary of State Blinken and the UK Foreign Secretary Lamy met in London. The statement said that the UK has expressed clear support for ongoing mediation efforts by the US, Egypt, and Qatar to conclude the agreement for a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages. Both countries called for all parties to the conflict to protect civilians and for Israel to facilitate the flow of aid, ensuring the UN and humanitarian partners can deliver their operations safely. Regarding the West Bank killing of Aysenur Ezgi Eygi, Senator Bernie Sanders yesterday called for the U.S. Justice Department to open an independent investigation into her death, who was killed by IDF fire last week while protesting in the West Bank. He also called for an investigation into the wider pattern of attacks on U.S. citizens by Israeli forces. Hundreds of people waving Turkish and Palestinian flags gathered for Eygi's funeral in Turkey today, where mourners included Turkey's vice president and their foreign minister. Ankara said on Thursday that it would request international arrest warrants for those who are to blame for what it calls an intentional killing. And following reports that the UAE is prepared to participate in the creation of an Arab force in Gaza for an interim period after the war, the UAE Foreign Minister Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan wrote on X that the UAE will not take part in a plan for the day after in Gaza without the establishment of a Palestinian state. I'd invite you to mark your calendars for October 6th. It is the Sunday before the one-year anniversary of the October 7th attacks. Invite your churches, encourage them to join us in another Solidarity Sunday. We're encouraging all of our church partners to pray for peace, to engage, to have Sunday sermons, Sunday programs, Sunday prayers, services, a Sunday schools after your worship services. Invite your churches to join us in that. If you're a pastor or a leader, or invite your pastor, join us in Solidarity Sunday, praying for peace on October 6th. Pray for peace, continue to work for peace. May God go before us in the name of Christ. Amen.